Now I request Dr. Amitava Banerjee to speak to us. Dr. Amitava Mukherjee is an internationally recognized scholar and development practitioner on food security, hunger, and poverty reduction. He has worked extensively in the countries in Asia, especially in China, Southeast and Central Asia, and India. He has also worked in several countries in Africa and few in Latin America. The basic reach of his work has been in poverty reduction and food insecurity, and range of his work has included action research, project implementation, capacity building, and advocacy for over 3 decades across continents.
First of all, we need to, what technically we say, disaggregate poverty. Poverty is not a uniform thing. There are various kinds of poverty, there are various types of poverty. I have a way of defining poverty based on proximate causes. That's very critical. Okay. Generally, when you talk about poverty, they talk, sorry, the slide is gone.
Is this a slide, classifications of poverty?
Yes, this is one, yes. You know, generally we say with this income poverty, there is sense argument of capability poverty, food poverty, that's the kind of poverty at the macro and at the meso level. But poverty at the micro level has to be defined in a slightly different way. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I can't see the, okay. Yes. The first, you know, there are 5 kinds. I have not written the 5th one, I will say. There is interstitial poverty. There is poverty amidst plenty. This is very critical. It's very critical to understand this, particularly in the context of, say, the Southeast Asian country. A family may be prosperous. A family may have enough food. Family may not have anybody below the poverty line, but still there can be people who are poor in the family because of interfamilial distribution of power. Typically in South Asian context, the mother-in-law is more powerful, or the father-in-law is more powerful. Therefore, he or she decides the distribution of food amongst the family members. There is a high probability of there being food insecurity and poverty within the family, though the family per se may be rich. I don't know how many of you understand Bengali, but if you have a look at a very famous movie by one of India's greatest filmmakers, Satyajit Ray, it's called Pathir Panchali. He has very clearly depicted how intrafamilial distribution of power can cause poverty and food insecurity within family. The second kind of poverty we are very concerned with is peripheral poverty. Peripheral poverty is poverty where people are living in marginal areas. River banks, shores of Bangladesh, on the banks of Brahmaputra in Assam, every year they suffer from flood, their belongings are washed away. Whatever effort they put in throughout the year to come out of poverty is literally wiped out. There is overcrowding poverty, poverty due to high density of population. This is particularly true of countries with high fertility rate. It is very true of some areas in India. It doesn't work it is not so important in Kerala, but it's extremely important in Bihar or West Bengal, even in Bangladesh. Then you have traumatic poverty. Poverty caused by disaster, natural and man-made. If you see particularly in the context of climate change, disasters have become very, very prominent. Now, disasters and man-made disasters or nature-made can be classified in two groups. One is where you have idiosyncratic shocks or your covariate shocks. Idiosyncratic shocks are shocks which are individual based. Somebody loses a limb, somebody loses an eye. Covariate shocks are the shocks that a community suffers because of, say, a war, for instance, what's going on in Afghanistan, or because of a natural disaster, what's going on in some parts of India and Kerala. Or it can be like the fire in yesterday in Bangladesh, where 50 people died. They're all idiosyncratic. Those people who worked in the factory, they are affected only, not the community though. And then there is endemic poverty. Now let us see how it happens. Next one, please. Next slide, please.
So, Dr. Amitava, there is a slide on the screen, kinds of poverty.
Yeah, this is the one.
Yeah, okay.
Now, in interstitial poverty, there is material deprivation and alienation. A person suffers from material deprivation. He doesn't have enough food, he doesn't have enough access to education, doesn't have enough access to healthcare, doesn't have clothing, and is alienated. He or she feels that that he or she is not cared for, okay? that they are not part of the family, or not part of the society. It very often happens in, say, in the countries in Asia where the minorities are concerned. Minorities often feel alienated. Minorities also face material deprivation. Not everywhere, but it is common. For instance, minorities not in terms of religious minorities like tribal people also. See, they suffer from material deprivation, and they suffer from alienation. They don't think that they're part of the mainstream. They don't think that they're part of society. They don't think that they're cared. Then peripheral poverty. People who live in the marginal areas, they have material deprivation, they have alienation, they're also isolated. People who live in say, the hills of Uttarakhand in India, or people who live in the hills of Himachal Pradesh, they're marginal areas, very unstable, subject to natural disasters. Because they're inaccessible, they suffer from material deprivation. Prices are very high. Actually, many things are not available, and things that are available are extremely expensive. People can't access them. They're alienated because they don't have interaction with mainstream society, or they have very limited interaction. Public figures who are in a democracy supposed to be in touch with the people, they also don't don't often get in touch with these people because of accessibility. They are also isolated. It's not easy to reach these places. Most of the time, means of transportation, infrastructure are poor. Now we come to overcrowding poverty. Population growth, is a serious issue. I'm not one of those who like to talk in terms of optimum theory, population, and all that. But within pockets of prosperity, there are some pockets the fertility rate is high, and if the density is high, fertility rate is high, poverty is high because the cake is shared between a larger number of people. Also, because of overcrowding, social services are limited. For instance, additional health center in UP is supposed to support 50,000 people. But what happens is because of overcrowding, they have stretched. They serve 60, 70,000 people far away. So the social services available limited. Obviously, because they live in the density is high, they are limited resources available to them. Traumatic poverty is poverty caused by disasters, natural, man-made, earthquakes, floods, drought, as I mentioned. And the final is which I have not mentioned here, is the endemic poverty, where people suffer from all of it together. There are pockets in our country, India, or in Pakistan.
Amitava, you have a couple of minutes.
Okay, I will almost be through.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if you look at all these kinds of poverty, people who suffer from disability are the worst hit. The first disability, I always say, is that they're poor. The second disability is their physical problem. They're differently able. Each of them has to be tackled. The state, there is a tendency now to privatize everything, or to what they say is fan out everything. That's not. The state has to assume responsibility. The last one, where we have poverty caused by disasters, there are insurances of social security available, and the state has to finance that. You often hear when you talk about insurance for poor people, they say money is an issue, the subsidy is an issue. We all enjoy subsidy. The electric light I'm enjoying now is subsidized. The road on which I drive my car is subsidized. The water that I consume in my residence in New Delhi, they're subsidized. Because we are vocal, so they are not cut, they are not touched, and the state is never bothered about it. But when it comes to poor people, comes to people with disability, resources become a big issue. I don't think we should let the state get out of it. They have to find resources. There are many ways of finding the resources, including cutting defense expenditure, including downsizing the government, including, I will be lynched, but I say higher taxation for people who can pay. I still think that there is a large number of people of India who are not, if you look at the number of people who pay taxes, it's laughable. There's a large section of people, particularly in the agricultural sector, who are not taxed. They should be taxed. For whatever reason they are not taxed, I don't know. If their income is more than 5 lakhs or 3 lakhs, there can be a minimum exemption limit. They have to be taxed. That in the Indian economy, 82% is the informal sector. Taxing agriculture is very, very important. I know it's bad politics, but it is good economics, and good economics ultimately becomes good politics. Thank you very much.